You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
So as you were talking, so this reminds me of a conversation I had yesterday with a client, and I've had this conversation multiple times. So this is like a reoccurring theme of conversation that I have with people. And it's about the challenge around quote unquote imposter syndrome. And so how this kind of relates to what you were talking about with confidence, this gal that I was talking to is quite frankly amazing. Like she comes from a South American war-torn country. She's gone through all of that. She's made a way. She's gotten educated. She's now an investor, and she has all these passions. She's world traveled. And I literally asked her, is there anything that you've set your mind to that you haven't accomplished? And she's like, no. And yet she's freaked out and has this lack of confidence in her ability to this next step in her journey, which is around real estate investing. And she has all of this experience. And so I don't know why this stuck with me, but there's a gal, a marketer / kind of coach, business lady. Her name is Marie Forleo. I love her stuff. She wrote a book, which actually I still haven't read the book, but the title is good enough for me.
I got the message from the title. Those are good books.
Yes. And the title is Everything is Figureoutable. And so that is now the lens that I have personally adopted, especially as a coach. And so when I'm getting ready to deliver or to do a thing with a group of people that I'm feeling a little bit, I'm having some nervousness around, I'm like doubting myself. And that's what I tell myself. Like, I have this history of doing things, figuring things out. I'm smart enough. Not that I know all of the, I don't know everything, but I know that I'm good enough to figure it out. So commit. My husband also likes to use this phrase, commit first and figure the rest out later. Well, I combine those two and I'm like, I'm going to commit because it's figure outable. Like, I can figure this out. And sometimes the figuring out is actually, a lot of times it's bringing people in. And I've had conversations with Daniel, I've had conversations with myself and a bunch of other coaches. Hey, I've got this thing coming up and this is what I've done so far, but oh my gosh, what else can I do to level up? What else can I add to make it even better? So it's all of that. It's just a mindset of, whether I feel confident or not, it's figure outable, because I have this history of being able to figure things out in life in general. And so I think that's a useful frame for coaches to be able to use as well, because almost every coach has, most of the coaches that we come across have this full life before coaching. They've had a career, they've done all these things, they're parents that have had struggles, whatever. And so you have a life history of success. So you just recognize that you've gained skill sets that are translatable into your coaching.
I love that, Sherry. And I would go farther with that and say, yes, everything's figure outable, which means as a coach, you have all this experience that can help guide somebody who has something to figure out. Because coaching is a lot about figuring it out together. And then you start getting to the gray area between coaching and consulting, because sometimes you can bring your experience and consult with somebody around how that applies in their situation, or how it doesn't apply, or how it might or might not apply. And it could be a way for them to see it in new perspective, because sometimes I like to tell a story around something that happened to me that's kind of related, and then they'll take away the thing that they need to take away. Or maybe I'll know that they're needing to solve the exact problem, but I know that I don't need to tell them. I need to just help them figure that out for themselves. And so there's this gray area between how do you use your experience and your ability to figure things out to apply that in the optimal way in the session with the client, because sometimes it's not for you to figure out their stuff. And so the thing I rely on is everything's figure outable for me, but also that means for them, everything's figure outable for them too. So transferring that confidence to them that they can figure it out is really important, but also we're in this together to figure it out together, knowing that my answers aren't going to be their answers. There might be some answers that I can provide from my life that are helpful, or from my experience or skill sets, but ultimately they've got to figure this out. And my job as a coach is to get them to figure it out. Sometimes my job as a consultant is to give them some very specific, tips on how to figure that out for themselves, but often their solution is going to be very personal and individual for them.
So one of the things I think is interesting as we're talking is it's like one of the skill sets as a coach is to recognize in ourselves the mindsets that are not helpful and how do you navigate that internally, but then also being able to recognize those mindset and beliefs in our clients that are not helpful to them, that are not serving them, and then how do we help them shift? So to me, that's one of the biggest mindset or the biggest skill sets that I am continually working on refining. How can I help my clients and myself bust through these beliefs that are keeping us stuck?
You're really talking about there's like this is self-mastery component. To be a great coach, you have to go through self-mastery yourself so that you don't get all those thoughts in the way, as far as I was talking. And then there's the coaching mastery. How do you help other people in a way that is actually beneficial? Because we've all had those family members or friends who try to help us and they just hammer into us what they want us to do. And that is not usually helpful. And so there's a whole coaching mastery professional skill set and the self-mastery skill set, right? Those are the kind of two things you're saying, Sherry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a third component that you're both alluding to, and Sherry alluded to that is, I mean, she even shared it that when I'm struggling with this, I have somebody to connect to and ask them and get feedback in the process. And I would say if there is a common pattern between people who do well in coaching and entrepreneurship in general and people who don't do well, it's the difference between what kind of people they surround themselves with, and do they have consistent feedback loop in the process. If their feedback is only their own mind in their own head, I don't think that's enough. Even as a coach, I don't think I can self-coach. To a degree I can, but past that degree, we all have all sorts of areas that are completely hidden to us. And this is the major belief in coaching, is that the reason why people need a coach is because they have blind spots. They will not see because they're in their life, they're within the forest, they're not looking at the forest from 30,000 feet or 10,000 feet, whatever that looks like. So one of the reasons why a community environment, an incubator environment, a mastermind environment, or having a coach works, whether it's in the business world or in the coaching world, or a mentor works, is that you get feedback for your thought process that might seem completely great to you. There's a chapter in the book that I'm reading, The Psychology of Money, is like, it says crazy is not crazy, something like that. One is like the things that we think that people spend money or invest on certain things. It looks crazy to us, but they have completely legitimate reasons. And if you listen to their reasoning process, oh, this makes sense from their point of view, but it makes no sense whatsoever when you look at it from a different point of view. So what does that mean? So on average, when I talk to coaches, and I've had quite a few coaches even in the past couple of months reach out to me, is like, and they will connect with me, you know what, I'm struggling with this thing, and somehow they got the courage, or we reached out to them. They're like, can you help me with this area? When we go into it, by the end of the session, they're like, holy shit, this is amazing, and I would have never thought of that. I'm like, how long have you been dealing with this? About 4 months. And like, did you have anybody you could get feedback from? And one of two answers come in. Either they have coaches or other business owners they could have gotten feedback and they didn't ask for it, and more so than not, they actually don't even have that. So they were kind of rolling around the same problem in their own head and hoping that they will come up with an answer. And they were kind of waiting for that answer to come to them and hoping. And we all do that to one degree or another. I hope that this answer comes to me, but you actually have the ability to change that. Can you find other people around you?
Faisal, I remember it's probably a good 2 years ago. You said, I don't know why this sticks in my mind, but there's the very high level, well-known coach. And I think it was either you or your wife were at a training with this gal. And she said, I am my own coach. And you, like, I could tell, like, that pushed a button, like that's probably one of your pet peeves, is somebody saying that.
Yeah, well, not just mine. My wife went through that process because she was her trainer, her coach, and she watched her. And at the end of it, she kind of looked like a charlatan in the whole process. It's like she was selling a drug that she wouldn't take herself.
Yeah.
She was like, oh, could you take this? She's like, no, I'll give it to you. It doesn't apply to me. And that was her. And and now I'm not going to reveal who that is, but this person actually did contribute quite a bit. It actually does contribute to the coaching world quite a bit. But the problem is that she's actually a really good trainer. She's not a good coach. And I've listened to her coaching sessions. And we hired her as a coach. We paid thousands of dollars, hired her as a coach. We thought it would be some amazing thing. It was way below average. And I was trying to justify it, but it wasn't until I have had better coaches who have paid a tenth of that. Too. And the thing that helped her move up was her credibility in a different area, and she leveraged that, and she had some marketing ability and connections. But the problem, and I'm not trying to bash anybody in this process, the problem came is that, and it showed up in her day-to-day narratives. This is how she would say it. Why did I say she?
I already said she, sorry.
You already established
Okay.
that the gender, it's not going to give it away.
Okay, so this is how, and I've listened to these trainings, and there are a couple areas she did this where it was like I could feel the hair on my arm stand up. It's like, why the hell is she doing this? One, she would literally tell coaches that she's trained, don't worry if you're not getting clients, you won't, and this is in the beginning of the pandemic. A lot of coaches are not getting clients right now. You might not be able to get clients for the next 6 months to a year. Who in their right mind says that to a bunch of people who are building a business? And second thing, in her sessions, she would demonstrate something as a coach. And these are visualization techniques or taking people through a process of processing emotions. And she will say that, I'm doing this with you. Don't try this in your session. This is much more advanced. Do this about maybe in a few years. She wouldn't even, and how did it show up in the groups that they were a part of? My wife actually did try it. She didn't listen, and she actually made a lot of improvements. And I actually worked with her a little bit, and we saw that like she could actually implement it. It was fairly straightforward. It was, of course, she needed to practice it a few times, but so she would get into these mastermind groups, and they had already accepted that belief. It's like, oh, that's not for us. That's for her. I'm working so hard to keep her name away in my head, but.
Well, we get the idea. We get the idea. Like, let's not go any farther.
So, but what I'm trying to share here is that just what she learned in the process was that she had other people to connect to.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast.